Hi everybody, Dan Oman here with some exciting news. DRF Formulator, the gold standard in past performance information, is now free, exclusively on DRF Bets. Join DRF Bets with the promo code WINNING, get a $250 first deposit match bonus, a $10 free bet, and free Formulator already uploaded to your account. Access Formulator's premium features, including sortable trainer stats, race replays, personalized trip notes, and lots more. Free Formulator, exclusively on DRF Bets.
Hi everyone, I'm David Aragona, and this is the January 26th edition of Horses to Watch, where we carefully analyze trips from the past week, looking for horses that might have encountered adversity and could be worth betting back when they run back in the future. This week, we're continuing with the theme from last week of a rail bias at Aqueduct. We saw a pretty pronounced rail bias on last week's show. I talked about some horses that had wide trips against that bias, and same thing this week, especially on past Saturday and Sunday cards at Aqueduct. We saw a significant rail bias, really the strongest rail bias of the entire Aqueduct meet, and one of the strongest rail biases that I can recall seeing on the New York circuit over the past couple of years, where horses that rode the rail just had such significant advantage. They were finishing in some cases 10 to 12 lengths ahead of horses that were outside for the entirety of their trips. So we're going to talk about some horses that finished far back, but were really compromised by racing against the track. And we're going to start with Saturday, which I think was the day that featured the stronger of the two rail biases. So we're going to talk about three races from that Saturday, January 22nd card, beginning with race 2. It's a claiming 35,000, non-winners of 3 lifetime, going 1 mile around one turn of the Aqueduct Oval. Let's break these horses from the gate. I want to focus on the number 2 Air Show, one of those horses that was just never on the rail for his entire trip. Now, this is a race where his rider, Trevor McCarthy, I think, learned a lot about the track, because I think he was riding a pretty live horse here, but one that just was outside the entire way and never really got any traction over the surface, whereas the eventual winner of this race, the number 3, My First Grammy, who is actually last right now, the number 3 horse, you're going to see him in those turquoise blue silks start to move up the inside along the rail the entire way. That horse just hugs the rail under apprentice Jose Gomez, whereas Trevor McCarthy, who right there kind of had an opportunity to get over to the rail before My First Grammy stuck up his inside, but Trevor on the number 2 Air Show just decides to stay out into the 3 path, and he might have been riding one of the best horses in this race, but he's never going to be able to show it given the fact that he's getting that wide trip. And just take note of how much acceleration My First Grammy gains by racing on that inside path. Again, the eventual winner is that number 3 horse, where the number 2 Air Show is kind of moving in tandem with him, but Air Show is going to have to go around those 2 leaders, whereas Jose Gomez, that apprentice on My First Grammy, just patiently waits in behind horses, and you're going to see right here he cuts the corner and goes inside of those 2 leaders. And when that eventual winner, the number 3, rides that inside path into the stretch, it's like he's on a conveyor belt and just automatically gains 3 lengths on the rest of the field, whereas Air Show had to swing outside. And it's not just ground loss that's slowing him down. He's on the much more taxing, demanding part of the track, and he's just never really able to gain that traction to put that accelerating move in to get up into a contending position by the end of this race. As you can see, My First Grammy drew up to win by 7 or 8 lengths here, and Air Show actually got passed from the inside for second to eventually finish third. He's one of these horses that was beaten a long way, but I think he actually ran one of the best races here. And Air Show, it should be noted, is a horse that ran very well in his prior start when he won over a sloppy track, I believe in late December, first off the claim for Tom Morley. That day, he had beaten a speed bias, not able to overcome the rail bias here, but I think he was facing a much more pronounced bias on Saturday at Aqueduct. So definitely a horse that I think is in good form right now and could be tough if he comes back at this same level next time out. Let's move on to the very next race at Aqueduct on Saturday. Race 3, it's a starter allowance, 50,000, going 7 furlongs. Let's break these runners from the gate, and we're going to focus on the number 5 Royal Realm, a horse that breaks a little bit slowly. We just missed a bit of the start there, but you can see he's already about 2 lengths behind the field, just a few strides out of the gate. Both he and the number 1, Rudy Rod, broke slowly in this race. Both of those horses are against the track here, but I do want to focus on Royal Realm because he's not a horse that has a history of breaking slowly like Rudy Rod does. I think Rudy Rod's broken slowly 4 times in a row, but Royal Realm, he's just worth highlighting because he's never on the rail, kind of like the horse we just talked about, Air Show. This is a very similar trip where he is just outside the entire way. And take note of the fact that the 3 horses who complete the trifecta in this race are the 3 horses that ride the rail for almost the entirety of their trips. The number 3, Color Me Potsy, on the lead, the number 7, Charger in the orange silk, so you can see riding the rail in mid-pack there, and that gray horse, the number 4, 4 Handy towards the back of the pack under Trevor McCarthy, a rider who really did figure out the track by this point of the day. The very next race, he rides the rail for as long as possible. Not the case for Royal Realm. You can see in those pink blinkers on the outside, he's swinging widest of all into the stretch, and that's just not the kind of trip you can get over a track that is rail biased. Notice he's on even terms with Handy right now, that number 4 down towards the inside, but watch how much acceleration Handy's able to pick up down towards the inside, whereas Royal Realm is just spinning his wheels out in the middle of the track. These horses had similar credentials coming into this race. Royal Realm's form actually coming in was even stronger, but Handy, it's just like he's on that conveyor belt as they come to the finish, having been buoyed by the fact that he was on the best part of the track the entire way. And you might recall Royal Realm from last week's show, because he's a horse that I did highlight on last week's episode of Horses to Watch, because he was against a rail bias last weekend as well on Sunday, January 16th. He was coming back just 6 days later to race this past Saturday, but it was the same situation. He was against a rail bias again. So this is a horse who has now been against biases twice in a row. And if you don't know that, you might look at his form and say, oh, well, his recent performances are just kind of fallen off a cliff because he was in such good form prior to that. But the rail biases are the reason why he hasn't performed up to expectations in his last couple starts. So he's one that is definitely worth added consideration when he runs back next time out. Let's move on to one more race from that Saturday card before we move to Sunday. It was the feature race on Saturday, race 8, the Franklin Square, going 6 furlongs for the New York bred 3-year-old fillies. Let's break these runners from the gate. I want to focus on 2 horses in this race, the number 6 Lilu and the number 7 Moam. And you can see Moam highlighted right there. She broke about 2 to 3 lengths slowly in this race, finds herself at the back of the pack from the start, and she's going to be off the screen for the majority of this race. Not really worth paying attention to for the beginning part of the race, but she will come into the screen later swinging wide, trying to make a closing move down the center of the track, something that's not really successful at Aqueduct this past weekend, but you just saw highlighted towards the front of the pack was the number 6 Lilu. She is a horse that I think just never had a chance to be competitive in this race, given the post position that she was drawn and the fact that there was so much speed to her inside. The number 1 Sandy's Garden got an aggressive ride from the rail, secured that inside position. Some other horses like the number 3 Thinking It Over was aggressively ridden to get forward as well. And Lilu just never had a chance to get to the inside and is basically 3 wide for her entire trip under Kendrick Carmouche. And you can see coming to the top of the stretch, the 3 horses who had rail position around the far turn are probably not coincidentally the number 1, 2, and 3, Sandy's Garden, Sterling Silver, and Thinking It Over, and they're just going to rocket away from this field through the stretch. I believe these 3 horses finished 10 lengths ahead of everybody else, and that just shows how severe this rail bias was on Saturday. The top 3 horses, they're all pretty nice, but are they 10 lengths better than horses like Lilu and Moam? I don't buy that for a second. I think both of those horses, Lilu and Moam, were badly compromised by the way the track was running. Lilu in particular, because she broke well, ran a professional race, just never got a trip that put her in contention to be successful here. So she's the kind of horse that if they come back in a similar stakes race next time out and all of these horses face off against each other, I would definitely want to give Lilu a second chance. Moam, I think this was just a building block race for her. She was coming back off a layoff. She's got a pedigree to stretch out. She seems physically like a horse that wants to go longer. So I would look for Lilu going longer to a route distance in her next start. Let's finish things up with a race from Sunday's card. Like I said at the top of the show, Saturday and Sunday featured a strong rail bias at Aqueduct. Probably on Sunday, the riders figured out how to ride the bias a little bit better, so maybe that made it seem like it was less strong, but we did still see horses riding the rail have a significant advantage on this day, and that was true in the last race of the day, race 9, which we're going to talk about right now, a claiming 25,000 non-workers of 2 lifetime, going 6 furlongs for the fillies and mares. Let's break these runners from the gate, and the horse that breaks from the far outside post position is going to win this race. That is the number 9, Mazel 18. But I want to pay attention to the horse that breaks just inside of her, the number 8, Seahorse Doro, in those light blue cerulean colored silks. She is going to drop towards the back of the pack on the early going and try to do something that most horses who raced on Saturday and Sunday were very unsuccessful attempting to do, and that is make a wide closing move. The horses that rode the rail, like I said, they just seem to spurt away from these fields and widen their margin through the stretch. But Seahorse Doro, she tries to buck that trend a little bit and actually does okay in this race. You notice that horse that I mentioned with breaking from the outside post, the number 9, Mazel 18. She was wide for a little bit on the backstretch, but by the time they got to the half-mile pole, she had cleared the field and crossed over to the rail, and she will proceed in that rail path for the rest of her trip. So she is riding the bias most of the way, but check out number 8, Seahorse Doro, highlighted just there towards the back of the pack. swinging 4 wide into the stretch. Most horses that swung out into the forepath and tried to pick up ground on Saturday and Sunday, just basically it was like they ran into a wall and their momentum got totally stopped once they came off the rail. But look at Seahorse Doro. She's actually passing horses pretty quickly as they come to the wire, something that we didn't see happen on any day any race this run this past weekend. So I thought Seahorse Doro ran pretty well to go from last at the top of the stretch to get up to nearly second by the time they passed the wire. She just missed, finishing third in this race. Now, she is a horse who had begun her career for Ray Handel, was claimed away from Ray in her career debut campaign for Other Connections recently, but she was claimed back by Ray Handel prior to this last race. This was her first start off the claim for Ray since debuting her a long time ago. And I think she has subtly improved on her prior form, but it's not really apparent in the results because she raced against the track bias this day. So when she races back second time off the claim for Ray Handel, I want to see how she does, because I think that she might be in better form than her effort this past Sunday would indicate. So those are all the horses to watch for this week. On rail bias weekends like this, you might want to go back and watch even more replays, try to find some horses that were against the bias, ones that you want to follow in the future. And if you do want to follow any of the horses I highlighted or horses that you find in your own replays, you can add them to the Horse Watch on DRF.com under your account, and you'll get email notifications when these horses run back in the future. It's a great way to bet horses back that you want to follow. So thanks for tuning in this week, and make sure to catch future episodes of Horses to Watch on upcoming Wednesdays.